Welcome to Prescribing Prosperity with your hosts, John and Alex Soutsos from MedWealth Financial Services, operating through IPC Securities Corporation. In this podcast, we provide unique insights into wealth management, the psychology of financial decisions, and help listeners place the capital markets into perspective. Our aim is to help physicians, business owners, and other medical professionals to live their dream. Life is to live and enjoy, so we'll also cover health and lifestyle-related topics such as food, dining, travel, and unique experiences. Learn how global trends shape our investment strategy as we help you assemble your roadmap to prosperity.
Hello and welcome to the Prescribing Prosperity podcast with John and Alex Soutsos. Guys, good to be with you again. I haven't seen you and I missed you. How are things going?
Yeah, we miss you too, Bill.
Oh,
Great
thanks.
to see you too, Bill.
Are you
Thank
sharpening
you very
your
much.
knife and fork for Thanksgiving?
Actually, yes. As a matter of fact.
If we hear any grinding noises in the background, Bill's got a butcher knife.
Well,
that
you
he's
know,
just cleaning
the next time we do this, I might be so large they've got to pull me up the stairs. So, you know, we shall see what happens. But
Got to get the George Costanza chairlift.
Exactly. Well, look, I have to apologize right up front, guys, because I noticed that this is a podcast today about men's fashion and entrepreneurship. And I realized as I sat down, I'm wearing the wardrobe meant for podcasting, not really for sartorial excellence. Unless, of course, if you're just listening to this podcast, we're all dressed in Armani suits. So leave it in that way. Well, let's leave it that way. Here to help along the conversation is Wassim Al-Roz. He is the owner and founder of Noahdonis Sartorial Garments. So welcome, Wassim. Welcome to the podcast. Good to see you. Good to talk to you.
Good to see you too. And thank you guys for having me. Really appreciate it.
Oh, fantastic. And with that introduction, I'll turn it over to Alex and let him start the conversation.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Bill. And welcome, Wassim. We're really excited to have you on. For those who don't know, I met Wassim. It's actually probably been at least 10 years now, Wassim. When I first met you, I was working at CI Investments, and you were working at Harry Rosen at the time. And while out for dinner one night with a lady friend, I had a bit of an incident on one of my suits, and unfortunately, I took it to the dry cleaner and they ruined it. And so never go and do business with Tip Top Tailor or Tip Top dry cleaners, I should say. So anyway, I ended up having to come see Wassim because I'd bought the suit from Harry Rosen. It was a beautiful blue suit, had some nice pinstripes in it, but I digress. And I actually was dealing with another individual at Harry Rosen who was woefully unhelpful. And so thankfully, they recommended that I speak to Wassim. They said he was their expert on staff. And I'm very glad that they did, because ever since then, I have not wanted to deal with anybody else. My grandfather was a tailor. My grandmother also was a seamstress, and my other grandmother was a seamstress. And so we come from a long line of people with high standards and high expectations when it comes to clothing. And Wassim was the only one who was able to meet those expectations. And truly, we felt had the knowledge and understanding to be able to guide us and provide us with the right knowledge in order to help us. So we really appreciate having you around, Wassim.
Oh, I appreciate you, Alex. I appreciate
You have a father too, who wore suits for a long time.
Listen, I'm not coming to you for fashion advice. I saw what you wore for a long time.
Hey, I had nice suits on. Everyone at the hockey rink said, "That's the guy with a suit." I remember you. You're the guy with a suit.
Well, when you're comparing them to the old timers wearing Wrangler jeans and flannel shirts, it's not much of a step up. But anyway, you did have some nice garments.
Always fit well.
Yes, he did have nice suits, Wassim. I only bug him. I used to actually really like, as a kid, going to Harry Rosen with him and looking around the store. I always thought it was a cool store. But that's enough about us. Yeah. We want to learn a little bit about you. So Wassim, why don't you tell us a little bit about your career journey and how you ended up with your own custom clothing company?
All right. So I started initially with my dad. My dad used to own a couple of stores in different malls, and he would get me in at the young age of 8-9 years old and try to tell me to do inventory, count these pants. And there's days where after school I just come spend time with him at the shop there. And I just grew a liking, even as a young kid, like, you know, all my clothes needed to be neat at 9, 10 years old. If I spilled something, you got to change it, trying to match all these colors and stuff like that, right? So I spent a good chunk, like childhood with my dad in that. He eventually got out of the business. I went on to school, studied business finance at Ryerson, and the goal was, hey, let's go, you know, you're gonna go work at a bank. So I finished school. I finished high school back in Lebanon, and then I was actually born here in Edmonton. So that's where it kind of, he started in Edmonton with that business. And then when he moved down here to Pickering and then Scarborough, but anyway, so I was born in Edmonton. And when I came back to Canada, I was like, okay, it's a part-time job. I worked at Timberland initially, selling casual clothing and stuff like that. And here we had Timberland and Tip Top was under the same umbrella.
Right.
So eventually they closed all Timberland stores, and the vice president came and said, would you like to move over part-time to work at Tip Top, where you sell more formal stuff, suits, you know, dressier, dress casual. So I got into that. And since then, I always, even working at Tip Top, the VP or the president would be like, I think you're the best dressed person that works. He's like, you look sharper than I do sometimes. Like
I believe that.
Yeah, there was times where he would be in the shop as well, like just to come and visit, and then customers would come in and ask him a question, and then he wouldn't answer because little things, you know, they wouldn't answer. He'd be like, how about you ask your manager? And he's like, wow, what makes you say he's my manager? He's like, well, it's because of the way he's dressed. He's like, well, it's the other way around, right? So I just grew like, yeah, it was just being able to see style and enjoy it. And from there on, I moved on to Harry Rosen. Harry Rosen to me was a little intimidating in the beginning. Plenty of times where I would walk by and be like, okay, maybe I should go in there and apply. Maybe I should go in there and apply and stuff like that. But it's just how they presented themselves. But once I started there, even the DM there was just like, you fit right in with how you put yourself together compared to, you're still wearing your suits that are, for example, you're buying your suits at Tip Top. You're not buying these Harry Rosen, Hugo Boss, Armani suits yet, but yet you're able to present yourself where, you know,
you
like
look good.
Client is going to look at you and be like, okay, you look good, you fit in, type of thing.
Yeah.
So, and from there, yeah, just started at Harry Rosen. And for me, it was just like, for us here, you know, like Harry Rosen is probably like the top, you know, it's almost like when we left there, it's like you graduated the school of Harry Rosen, because they take you through some serious training to be able to sell a suit. They don't just get anybody and throw them in there and be like, all right, here you go, start selling a suit. It was more like, you got to pass certain tests. You got to do this clothesmanship. You got to make sure a suit fits properly. So it took me about 6 months, and I failed actually 3 times at trying to fit a suit properly. Eventually, like once I nailed it, it was like, because my manager at that time was like, I know you can do better, you know? So yes, in other standards, they'll probably pass you if it was a different manager, but I see how serious you take this, so I know you can do better. And then so you pass that, it all becomes like, again, you graduated the school of Harry Rosen here in Canada,
right?
And became sales manager from there. And then, you know, it just becomes like, it's almost like a threshold that you get to, right? So it's like, all right, so what's next after this? And you're working at a place where you're selling other brands, right? And like with me, I would follow a lot of, like, because I follow a lot of sports, so I would see what these athletes would wear, whether it's in the NBA or NFL or baseball, MLB, all that stuff, NHL. I'd watch what they wear, and I'm like, okay, I see that. I can't offer anything like that because we're limited. Like brands will come and say, you're going to sell this sweater, right? Or Harry Rosen would go buy your blacks, your blues, your grays, because they sell lots of. And that's what, at that point, I'm like, you know, it's time for me to leave. But when I left, I never left initially with the intention of going into business for myself right away. I had left to help out with my dad because he was into merchant processing. So I did this transition where I went into almost like accounting and finance, working with my dad. I'll tell you, that lasted about 6 months, and I'm like, nope, I'm not gonna do this. So
what was it about it that you didn't enjoy? Was it just the nature of the business, or challenges
it was the nature of the business. Like although like I'm not very, I mean, I would say people look at me as a little bit more on the quieter side, but I'm outgoing when you know, like I'd like to sit down, talk to people, get to know people and stuff like that. So here you are. from spending 15 years of dealing with clients and customers and all that stuff, and believe it or not, enjoying solving these problems or issues that we're dealing with and finding solutions to it, to just sitting on a desk and just looking at receipts and papers all day and all these numbers. And then I went from wearing a suit every day to wearing tracksuits. And then when I tried to change that, my dad was like, no, you're not doing that, because now you're wearing a full-on suit, and here I am in my shorts and jeans, and now people are going to be like, who is this guy? Who's the boss here? Which one is the boss, right? So
Yeah.
And I just got tired of wearing like tracksuits. I went through this phase where I was just like buying a lot of sneakers and Jordans and all that. Yep. But at the end of the day, I'm like, that's not it. So I'd start dressing up and sitting in an office by myself. Like I did not need to dress up, but to me, it was dressing up. It in the beginning of the day, it's almost like it sets the mood for you, sets the day for you, tells you what kind of day you're about to have, so
absolutely. I'm in for a rough day based on my attire.
But Don Cherry would be a big adherent to that mindset. Don Cherry was famous for being a coach of the Boston Bruins, and he was always on Hockey Night in Canada and intermissions, and he was always dressed impeccably. And he always encouraged the young hockey players to dress up to attend to their work.
Yep. Yeah. I know Don Cherry used to buy his fabrics from Fabricland.
Yeah, right. That's right.
Or the Fabricland.
Some of them were curtain fabrics, if I'm not mistaken. Then he used to turn them into.
I think he got them from the Carol Burnett backstage wardrobe set. Any curtains that were hanging in California, he would bring them in and make suits out of them.
Somehow made them look sharp.
Yeah,
absolutely. All right, Dad, do you want to take over?
Wassim, let's talk a bit more about what led you to starting your own business. Obviously, I met you when you were at Harry Rosen, but what motivated you to leave the top men's fashion store to start your own business?
It was really I wanted to get more involved with athletes, influencers, and then again, like I'm really like the NBA and basketball is a big part of my life, right? So I was trying to find a way to reach out, and then I would reach out. We'd get these guys to come in. Like I got a few guys that would come into Harry Rosen, and they just look around. They're like, there's nothing really like that's different, right? Even because Harry Rosen does like the custom suits as well. They do the bespoke, they do the made to measure, but you get to select books that you would want to carry, right? So for example, you're reaching out to a mill like Xenia, you say, show me the books that you have. Xenia has some very fancy fabrics, but they also have your blues, your blacks, your grays, which again is something that would work for them and they would sell lots for, which I understand, right? So they're trying to obviously, rather than have stuff that's just going to sit there, they want to sell their merchandise. So their buying was more so your blacks, your blues, your grays, and I was really like, okay, I really want to start dressing athletes. I really want to get into that, become more of a designer and a fashion designer rather than just, a salesperson. And while working at Harry Rosen, I feel like I enjoyed a lot of being able to offer an experience. It was very experience oriented for me. It was more than like somebody just walking in and saying, hey, let me just sell them something because I'm going to get commission out of it. So I made sure they enjoyed that. So then I thought of an idea, and I'm like, that's exactly what I feel like I want to do. Number one, I want to go be thinking outside of the box, create stuff myself, design different, like whether picking out different patterns, picking out a suit like this. I've done suits that are half blue, half orange, for example, for some guys that want to get fancy with it. And that I was limited at Harry Rosen to be.
Are these basketball players or NFL players or
basketball players? Yeah.
Half orange and half blue.
Yeah.
You said?
Yeah.
Is
Syracuse. That's Syracuse colors, Dad. Oh, on the Knicks.
Syracuse colors. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, you would know more than I would.
Well,
okay. So
hold on 1 second, Dad. I just got to ask Wassim one question here. You keep talking about, dealing with the athletes. Do you get as bothered as I do, Wassim, when you see a team redesign their uniforms and it looks like something that was designed by somebody who had
100%,
who was lacking in sight in the
Yep.
ability to actually see,
I'm like, what happened? What
like
happened?
the Utah Jazz, not
Yeah,
to name
exactly,
names.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yep.
So sorry, it bothers me. I really hate the new in-season tournament. I hate their courts that are dark.
I don't know who came up with that idea. It's the worst idea I think I've ever seen.
It's horrendous. The Utah Jazz, I ain't gonna pick on them for a little bit here because why not? Karl Malone's long gone. He's not gonna come after me. So their purple courts with their purple jerseys, it does not make for a very visually appealing backdrop when you're watching it on TV. I can't imagine it's any better in person, but God Almighty, is it ever horrendous?
I agree with you 100%. Even like, to be honest with you, I'm gonna go out to Toronto Raptors.
Yeah,
Jerseys, these gold jerseys, and then I look at the court that they're about to play on, and it's golden. I'm like, you guys are blending in with it.
because it's like a dark charcoal gray, and they've got the reflection from all the advertising that's around the rink or around the court, I should say, reflecting onto the dark court, and it's a hot mess. Hate the stupid NBA tournament. Anyway,
well, Bill, I remember the days when there was no advertising, the court was plain, and there was just a light from high up above shining down, and everyone was quiet. There was no music, and people took the game seriously.
And a thick cloud of smoke from all the smokers inside.
That's right, and stale popcorn and sticky Coke.
And Red sat on the sidelines and smoked a stogie while he coached
exactly
the boys up and down the court.
Exactly the good old days.
Sure.
Okay. Anyway, we digress. Wassim, what did you do to prepare yourself for the journey into entrepreneurship? That's not an easy transition, going from a salaried position into business ownership. And how did you prepare yourself? What did you do?
I think first of all, it was a lot mentally. I had to prepare mentally because I was like to myself, I'm like, I understand how speaking to different entrepreneurs and owners and business owners, it was like for the first 2-3 years, you need to understand like it's about the business, right? And really, you're probably not going to get a salary. So, and I was ready to, and I had to prepare myself, I think, mentally for some, I would say, there's going to be bumps, there's going to be failures, and it was more so once it happens, I can't just be like, I shouldn't have done this. And it is true. Like once I started it, I hit like so many speed bumps in the beginning, but not once did I say I should have stayed at Hero Rosen.
Right.
You know, I never thought of it as, oh man, I should have stayed at Hero Rosen, and even like obviously having a family and stuff like that, and kids, and you're like, okay, I got to provide for my kids. Luckily, like obviously with the business that I was helping out with my dad, it was generating some income, but eventually like that stopped as well, because the timing of starting my brand, it was like 2000, I would say September 2019, right? So yeah, and it was
so
there was this something that happened shortly thereafter? I don't remember.
I forgot what it was. Something small.
Well, well, what time of COVID now? So you had mental preparation. Did you have financial preparation? Had you saved up money?
Yeah. I have financial preparation, which is again why I was like, I'm comfortable enough to be able to go through with this and know that I do not need to rely on income from this business.
Okay.
Right?
And
so let me build this business right now.
Was your spouse able to help out financially to provide stability?
Yeah. So she was able to help out in that sense as
well.
How
what was she like in terms of your transition? Was she 100% behind you, or was she waffling, or what was her mindset?
Be careful, Wassim. She might listen to this.
No, I would say like in the beginning of it, it was difficult. It was trying to get her obviously to understand, because I was helping out with my dad's business and trying to do this at the same time, right? So number one, time, I was just like, you had obviously no time to be at home, and but financially she was like, okay, what do you need help with? You know, I'm gonna help you. Even like hitting, whether it was speed bumps with clients and stuff like that, she was jumping in to help. But I would say financially, again, it was difficult, where she's like, yeah, go ahead, I want you to do whatever you can. But at the same time, it was like, okay, but you're like, there's no time at home at this point, right? Obviously it's a little bit difficult at that time, but was able to, you know, the first year of it was just like probably the most
Most difficult. I speak from experience that you need to have a supportive spouse whenever you're getting involved in business ownership or being an entrepreneur, because it is not a smooth ride. And without someone to support you, when I say someone, I mean your spouse to support you, it's almost impossible to move forward. A different story if you're single and you're doing this, but when you're married, when you have a young family, and then you do also get the commentaries, like you said, like no work-life balance here. You're not at home at all. That's the grounding mechanism that spouses have to remind you that it's not just about the business. It's also about the family. Were there any specific qualifications you had to attain to help give you an understanding of how garments are put together and how they're supposed to be tailored?
Yeah, so working at Harry Rosen's, it was like, so we had to pass this clothesmanship, right? So it was more so, how do you put on a garment on a gentleman? It's what are you supposed to do to help them relax? Because the thing is with men is, once you go to put on a suit, immediately it's a natural thing. You immediately stand up and go like this, right? Once the jacket comes on, and then you have to be able to get the client to, relax. I need you to be standing in your normal stance rather than like your chest out or shoulders back or anything like that, right? So it was all those little things that they taught us to be able at Tip Top. I never knew any of that stuff, right? So passing this clothesmanship, but I would reach out to the made to measure, who was a specialist that was there and that would do this bespoke at Harry Rosen. And he was there for about 30 years. I would still reach out to him and ask him for like one-on-one trainings, or be able to go to his, like just to learn like the little things as to, why is this happening on a garment? Why is this happening on a suit? Why does the chest come out? Why does this come out? Right? Where again, that's when I noticed, I was more serious about it rather than just making a quick sale. And so it was really never to me about just selling it. It was like, I actually wanted to understand the garment, to understand the fabric. And it was, so being able to pass that and continuously just learn about different fabrics. And it would, the first thing I think he told me, he said like, you can pick out 3-4 different fabrics that are the same size, but they're not all going to fit the same, right? So then I started to get into fabrics and understanding, okay, the reason why is this fabric just like this, it's more structured.
Did you have to go to Italy or someplace to learn about fabrics?
No, I did but I do go online and I check, for example, so there's a mill called Loro Piana. So I would go there to Xenia to find out more about their fabrics and study their fabrics, right? And whenever they send us a book, like once you open it, it'll tell you exactly what the fabric is, how it was grown, how it was weaved, and all those little details. But a big goal of mine is, hopefully, I'm hoping March of next year, is to visit Italy. We have a manufacturer in Portugal, because obviously Italy is the place to go to, and 90% of the fabrics we have are from Italy.
And so, sorry, Wassim, I'm just going to ask you quickly, in terms of like you mentioned like the weave and the way it was grown and such, does that impact, like the weave itself, I assume, would impact the way it drapes or falls on the body? Is that correct?
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
So are certain types of weaves, like what are you looking for? Like, are you looking for, like, give us an example of what a different type of weave would do in terms of being, more structured, more stiff, more natural?
So you're looking, for example, just even like the weight of the fabric, right? So if you're looking, for example, like a houndstooth fabric compared to something that's made out of wool and linen, all right? Even you have different wools that some of them are woven a little bit more tighter, and some are a little bit more looser, right? So some of them, they feel like they have some linen in them, but it's not. It's 100% wool. And then you have ones that are weaved a little bit more closer, and the fabric is more, I would say, more so like a Super 150, where it feels luxurious. It feels like silk.
Yeah.
Those are the fabrics that, for example, they can't handle beating, right? So
right.
I wouldn't recommend it for somebody who's going to say, hey, I need to wear a suit 5 times a day, or 5 times a week. Sorry, right? I'm wearing it every single day of the week. That's not what I would recommend.
So what do you recommend to James Bond, who's having fights and jumping off helicopters?
Kevlar.
Kevlar. You let me know when you've made your first Kevlar suit, Wassim, and I want to meet that person.
Kevlar suits, yeah, exactly.
Oh, he's making it for me, isn't he?
John Wick, yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna have special buttons that deflect bullets too.
Yeah, exactly.
So Wasim, what do you how do you differentiate yourself from your competition in terms of marketing?
I rely even at like when I started Cloth Talk, when that first started, we never really did any marketing. It was more so word of mouth because of the experience that we were offering. We knew it was like in a way like incomparable. Like, you know, like we're looking at other clients that we're still going to hear. There's a tons of other menswear that are doing custom and bespoke and made to measure here in Toronto. But we would do things where, okay, we'll tell you here's 2 hours. You know, the appointment's going to be 2 hours, 2.5 hours. So give yourself that time. And during the first maybe half an hour to 45 minutes, it's getting to know the client. But right now, marketing wise, I would say for me, it was word of mouth, giving that experience to a client. But I also rely now on like influencers, athletes to kind of help get the brand out there, right? So I kind of.
So you're connected to a few NBA players, is that right?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, and we don't want to mention anything so as not to reveal their identity.
Yeah.
Okay.
But Wassim, in terms of, you know, reaching out to those NBA players, how did you get connected to them to begin with? How did you convince them to give you a chance and to give you an opportunity to design custom pieces for them?
It was so obviously being in the community since I was young and playing in different leagues. I have the connections and the network that I grew at that time. So a few of them one of them is actually an NBA agent. And I would like, before even anything like that, I would like reach out to him. We kept in touch, and he's kind of like would see how I would dress, and eventually once he got into the game of like basketball, or even for me, like college players or anything like that, like I try to get them like at the younger age rather than they're, you know, like halfway, or it really is almost like scouting too, right? So it's like I see
get them while they're young.
He has a potential. I know he's gonna make it. You know, even if he's still in college. So helping out these guys in college. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna make you a suit, and it's a suit that I'm covering. I'm paying for it. All I need you to put this on your shoulders and tell me exactly how you feel. You know, so that's how marketing was, rather than spending the money on blowing up Facebook ads, throwing out here, there, you know, putting up billboards. I'm like, let me take that money and use it towards making these garments. Although they're expensive, they're not really cheap. But I think they understood that, because I wouldn't mention, I say, listen, if I were to sell you this is what it's going to cost. This is a $2,500 suit, a $3,000 suit, and you're not going to pay for it. I want you to wear it. And then you actually genuinely, if it's something that you're comfortable with, you like it, you enjoy it, you know, I know they're going to come back. And it's happened, you know, so that's my marketing.
So your book is going to be called Suit Dog as opposed to Shoe Dog, as the founder of Nike.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Well, I think that's such an ingenious and innovative approach, because a lot of people would go the traditional route of, you know, just trying to ground and pound when it came to getting the brand out there, letting people see it and see it in multiple different places, to go out there and establish and really, because what we're all ultimately trying to do, whatever business you're in, is you're trying to custom tailor, not to excuse the pun there on the sartorial side, but you're trying to custom tailor your marketing so it's specific to your client. And to be able to get that intimate experience where you custom tailor a garment specifically for them to fit them perfectly, a high quality suit, I think that's going to leave such a remarkable impression on the person, especially because you're not charging them for that piece of garment. You're giving it to them as a free sample of what your services can provide. And then I assume most of the time they're going to be pretty satisfied with that, because who's not going to love a brand new custom tailored piece of clothing for them, and then come back to you. And as you've told me, you know, it leads to, you know, we'll make suits for them. For some people, we'll design their entire wardrobe for them. You know, every season, like we'll build out a custom wardrobe each year, and it obviously creates a much more fruitful relationship. And I think that's a remarkable way to go out and differentiate yourself from others.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And
so, sorry, go ahead.
I said, and that was the approach. Exactly.
Yeah. Wassim, let's focus in a little bit more on what you focus on at Noahdonis. How does it differ from other clothing retailers, including your old business at Cloth Talk?
So with Cloth Talk, initially, like we started out as it was just made to measure and doing bespoke and doing custom suits. I have two partners there as well, and we obviously with COVID and all that stuff that happened, they ended up leaving, working at Hey Rosen as well, and then eventually came and joined. But it turned it with made to measure and custom. It's a little bit difficult to get quantity sales, right? It's more
Right.
so like, you know, you're gonna get the gentleman who's gonna be like, okay, I need a suit, and men really don't plan like months in advance for something. You know, they'll come and be like, hey, I'm getting married next week, I need a suit. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, type of thing. So
Yeah.
With that happening, and then the guys jumping on board, and we ended up having to purchase some stuff, different brands, and selling other brands, selling Hugo Boss, selling Diesel. So it became a retail store rather
Right.
than the vision was we're gonna start designing our own stuff. So it's gonna be suits like this. We're gonna pick out fabrics. We're gonna do all this stuff, and it's just gonna be towards athletes, influencers, and celebrities and all that. So when we started carrying brands, for me, I'm like, okay, this was not my vision. I feel like I'm almost in a place where I'm back to Harry Rosen now. I'm just here selling other brands, right? And it's like we do need to do that, you know, to make sales, to survive, and to keep going and to stay open, obviously during COVID as well, because we can't live off 3 partners. We can't live off selling 4 suits a month or 5 suits a month, right? So we started to carry those product, and we did well. We're doing good. But again, with me, it was, I said, rather than continue to do this, like I did that at Harry Rosen where I was like for 5 years, I'm like, rather than continue to do this for another 3-4 years, let me just, from now, I'll tell them it was a great journey. I obviously learned a lot, and I've started this already. I know how to start it now. I think I'm better now at starting it again.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm gonna do it again. And but this time it's just a sole focus on just doing everything custom. Even like building my own brand where I'll pick out a fabric like this and I'll do a detail to it that you'll be like, okay, this is Noahdonis. You know, this is designed by Wassim, styled by Wassim, because he did something to it. Like I could look at a Tom Ford suit and be like, I know that's Tom Ford. I could look at an Armani suit and be like, I know that's Armani. So that's where the vision went. And I'm like, and I also keeping the experience as well, right? So I don't know if I mentioned this to you, like the store that I want to open is going to become more of like it's like almost like a gentleman's lounge. Not to give away too much, but it was more so an experience where you come in and you're going to find yourself probably playing billiards while you're trying to buy a suit, or having a drink, smoking a cigar. All that is part of the experience. All that ties into, you come in there. I don't want you to come in and be like, I have half an hour for you. No, I need 2-3 hours, because you're gonna find yourself spending more time there and be like, you know, it's something that you didn't expect.
Is there going to be a big screen and espresso?
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, Wassim, my wife doesn't listen to this podcast, so I can't wait to come and spend lots of time at your store, hours and hours and hours, and abscond with all of my duties.
I promise. I had a client after I left. He's like, "Where are we gonna hang out now?" I'm like, "Hang out." He would come and spend 4 hours there, have an espresso, go outside, have a cigar, come back in. You know, so just to keep that, and but also focus on, obviously, like I rely on my clients a lot. You know, so I mean, thanks to you guys for always supporting, and those are, like, I think, the pillars that keep me going. And rather than, while I continue to try to reach out to these celebrities and athletes and stuff like that. So yeah.
Absolutely, we're happy to do it, and we want to see you have continued success with CM. That's something that gives me personally a lot of joy and a lot of pride, and I know it does for my dad as well. Now, if you were to build somebody's wardrobe from scratch, let's say a young working professional, like when you and I first met, what are some of the essentials that you would recommend for that individual to have in their wardrobe? And obviously, a young working professional is not going to have a ton of money, but what are some of the essential pieces you would recommend, or that you think go a long way in terms of giving somebody the versatility to be able to not only go to work and dress well, but also, you know, go out casually, socially, and still fit in and stand out in a good way, not in a bad way. He's wearing jeans that are falling down to his ankle kind of way.
I would, yeah. I would start off, I would say initially, but back then it was more so, hey, you need to get yourself a navy suit. But I would turn it around now. So I would go more so towards getting a charcoal, anything in between like the grays, a lighter gray or charcoal, and then doing a sport jacket pant combination, right? So a sport jacket that you're going to be able to wear with cotton pants, you're also going to be able to wear it. So you got to be I would say selective.
Strategic.
Yeah, in terms of the fabric that you're picking out, right? Because you don't want to pick out a fabric for a sport jacket that's a suit fabric, because you're not going to be able to wear it with jeans. You're not going to, right? So it's picking out a fabric that you're going to be able to wear with dress pants. You're going to be able to wear with jeans, cotton pants, right? So I would go more so, let's pick out a charcoal gray fabric with maybe a little bit of a pattern. It doesn't have to necessarily be solid. And then you can mix it up with the shirt. I could tell you how many times you wear a different shirt and you make the suit look different.
Yeah.
And then picking out a navy jacket, a navy sport jacket, matching it with some pants, a few different shirts as well, light pink, light blue, white, and you're good to go. You know, I know there's a lot of people who watch the Steve Harvey reel that went out where he says you buy, I think, 5 suits, black, blue, gray, cream, and then he's like, you just mix the pants and I don't recommend it. It's
a cream suit's a bold choice.
Yeah, it is.
Cream suit is if you live in Atlanta.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not in the Northeast.
Yeah.
And you don't have our coloring, because I'm not sure that I would necessarily look good in a cream suit. I lack the sufficient sun exposure here to be able to pull that off. But maybe after we get back from Aruba.
I think that's the artificial lighting in your room. I don't think that's your real color.
Okay. Either way, I'm looking pretty pale these days. So I think that's great advice, Wassim. Like you said, a couple blazers, a suit, a couple nice pairs of either cotton or jeans. When it comes to what differentiates a suit fabric from what you would consider like a sport jacket fabric,
yeah.
I understand, I know what I'm looking for because I've done it a lot of times, but for people who might not be as familiar with that process, what should they be looking for? What differentiates a suit fabric from something that's more of like a sport coat kind of fabric?
So like we discussed earlier, so it's more so the weave. So you're looking at, for example, you're buying a suit fabric that's, let's just say, super 120s or super 130s, right? So the finish on it's more of a solid, it has a bit of a sheen to it. So that one, it's more so, that's a solid suit that's only going to be wearing with dress pants. When you're looking at the sport jacket, the weave of it is a little bit more different. It's still 100% wool. It could be considered 120s, 130s, right? So some of them, they'll have like a blend of let's just say cashmere in it, or a blend of silk, or a blend of cotton. The jackets are a little bit more, I mean, you get your cottons, 10% cotton in a wool blazer, that you can already feel the difference, right? And now these days they're doing like a lot of the fabrics where it's a little bit more on the stretchier side.
Right.
So that's
Wassim, can you clarify the term you're using, super 120? What is a 120 and what is a super 120, and what's all that jargon mean?
So this all started with our Italian friends. They they put an S in front of, for example, super 100s. Before, like the highest you would probably reach, I think back in the day, was like a super 130. So that the higher the count of or as you go up, 130, 140, 150 is fine. The finer the fabric, the finer the weave, right? So fabrics are woven like this, for example, but it becomes more of the fiber of the fabric is longer. And once it becomes longer, it becomes finer. So when they're going and they're taking out all the wool from the sheep and all that stuff, and you got the Angora goats and stuff so if you go towards, let's just say a super 170, we got fabrics that are mohair, you got fabrics that are wool, but they're Angora goat. They come out from specific countries, different countries, right? You're not going to find them all in, for example, let's say Italy. So they have farms out in different parts of the world that are able to breed these animals or keep these animals and keep the wool healthy, right? So when they cut it, or when they shave them, so it goes like this. It's called warp and weft. But the fibers also, they get, as you go higher, so super 160s and 170s, the fiber is much longer, rather than it being a little bit more shorter, and then it's closer to each other. So when it's softer.
Sorry to interrupt. So the number relates to the length of the fiber, or is it the number of fibers per square inch?
It's the number of fibers per square inch.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But they do it a little bit more on the longer side, because it just that's the way where you're gonna get it to be a little bit more delicate, softer, luxurious.
Right.
Okay.
So Wassim, can
Right
you?
now yes, go
Sorry,
ahead.
go ahead.
I would say the highest right now, you're looking at like super 170s.
Okay, that's
Which-
your ultimate like cream of the crop.
Yeah,
You're gonna have to come up with a different name than Super. You're gonna have to call it Soutsos 180s. What do you think?
got you.
Yeah, all right.
So Wassim, explain for us the difference between a made to measure and a bespoke suit.
So made to measure, it is what you're getting is shoulders is already cut. So when we're doing made to measure garments, so I'm getting you to try on a pattern that's already cut with specs that are already given, and then I'm just altering, I'm just going ahead and I'm calling my tailor and saying, all right, so we're going to use these specs for this suit, which is again already cut, and I'm just going to get you to take in the chest. I'm going to make you do these minor adjustments.
Right.
When you're getting a bespoke suit, if you hear everybody uses this word bespoke very loosely, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way you can ever go get a bespoke suit and it shows up and it's ready for you to put on your shoulders. That you're going to go through 3 different fittings. So you got the first one where you're going to come in. All you got to look at and be mindful of is looking at the sleeve length and the jacket length, and you're comfortable with that. Everything else, the tailor is going to be able to tell you the back. So it's going to come unfinished. You're going to see the canvas on the inside. And then you're going to get the second fitting to make sure it's sitting flat on your chest. So there's a lot of hand details as well. There's a lot of handwork. And when you're getting a bespoke suit, it's literally a garment that's shaped for your body and your body only, right? So instead of getting, for example, like I said, made to measure, I'll put a size 42. There's a 42 that I'll put on you. I could put it on somebody else. Tons of people that'll put the 42 on, and I'll be like, all right, just make this adjustment here and there. A bespoke suit is everything is done from scratch. It's also the canvas that's being it's double layers for the canvas that's being used as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So the horsehair that's being used inside, it's a double layer, and you can never go be like, I want a bespoke suit that's half canvas. It's always full canvas.
Okay. And is the additional canvas in order to provide that extra molding, if you will, to custom fit your body and your build type?
Exactly, yes. So that's probably the most important part of a suit is the canvas on the inside. Obviously, you got the fabric, and then the craftsmanship you got to find a good tailor to put it together, right? But the canvas is the most important, because as you get to wear that, it starts to shape to your body, right? So it's a few layers that could go between the top and the lining or the fabric on the inside. Made from horsehair. The best canvas I would say is usually like it's Italian sun-dried canvas.
Okay.
So with that is after you cut it, it gets its shrink already. So when you put it inside a suit, it's not gonna, when you're stitching it, it's still gonna sit nice and flat. It's gonna drape well, and the chances of you having to dry clean it are like once a year, right? And I would even recommend, like, even when you have to go dry clean it, if it's something that you can take back to your tailor, bring it back to the tailor, because a suit takes about 4 hours to get pressed, right? For it to, especially a bespoke suit, you need 4 hours of pressing for it to go back to how it looked before. So, you take it to a dry cleaner, it's going to be a quick thing, machine, boom, and then it's just, especially if you're spending that kind of money for a bespoke suit.
From a practical perspective, where are you finding these tailors? Like, my understanding is this is a rare art form now, and there aren't that many people available, especially here in Canada. Or am I wrong about that?
That is right. Actually, there used to be a lot of tailors, but now it's kind of like, especially when you're working with luxurious fabrics like this and expensive suits. So like for me, we ordered different suits from different places to find out the craftsmanship and how well it's put together, so the construction of it. Here we get our suits done, and I get our suits done here in Canada, and we do Portugal as well. So obviously reached out to a few different manufacturers to see their craftsmanship, their tailors, how they work with stuff. And then here the tailors that we have here Italian. So
They all come from Italy, or are they trained here? Or
I would say the head tailor comes from Italy. Barely speaks. I think he doesn't speak a lot of English as well. But obviously, everybody that works with him, you know, they have these expectations that they need to set, right? So the bar is set so high. So when I'm looking at a garment that is made with them compared to when it's made, for example, in Portugal or any other place, you can tell just from how it drapes and how it hangs where it's made. I can tell you for sure, right? So yeah,
Right.
we're just very, we have to be very selective with the tailors that we work with to make sure it's expensive fabrics. Like I'm telling you, it's some of these fabrics you're looking at a meter costs like $350 Canadian, right? And that's just, yeah.
Holy.
So that, and for every client, for example, you're looking at, you need about 4 yards. So
Right.
just the fabric itself is expensive fabric. So you got to make sure that it's being done by the best tailors.
For sure, for sure. Dad, do you want to take back over then and guide us through retail trends and fashion trends?
Sure. Well, I've been in the investment business since 1986, and my first introduction to high fashion suits was when I started my career. And my wife is Italian, so standard procedure. She took me to an Italian clothier, and we bought a suit for what I thought was a king's ransom in terms of the price back in 1986. When you could buy a suit for $100 or $200, and we spent $600 on my first suit. And I to this day, I was shaking my head in disbelief that I spent that kind of money back then when I didn't have any money to spend. But I've noticed over the course of time that fashion trends have been evolving. Double-breasted suits were really big in the late 80s and into the 90s. Then you had the whole thing with the what do they call those straps that hold up your pants? Suspenders.
Suspenders.
Thank you. Yeah, suspenders. What has been emerging in the recent past in terms of fashion in the area of suits?
Personally, for me, I follow a lot of what's happening in Europe, right? So even the guys that I follow, I would say on social media, it's all these guys are from, I would say 80 to 90% of them are from Italy. So I always see what's happening there, and with us, it eventually happens a year later. Right now, you got the double-breasted is back. Suits are not as close to the body as they used to be, right? So you're getting a little bit more on the looser side, a little bit more comfortable. When the pants not so narrow at the bottom, you still get that the younger generation says, "Oh, I want my pants to be super narrow and no socks, and I want to show 6 inches on my ankle." And it's like that's gone, you know. So, and I even
Thank goodness.
I'm like, no, I'm not gonna do that. If you want to do that, please go somewhere else, because you're not gonna go out there and be like, "Oh, we'll see him dress me," you know.
Yes.
So
you don't want to put your name on that.
No, I'm not gonna do it.
Well, you know what the worst was, Wassim, at the so we're big golf fans, but at the Ryder Cup this year, the US team, they did like a team picture, and they're all golfers, so they're all out there most of the time in shorts, and so they've all got really bad like sock tans on their ankles, but they've all got these really short suits, and so all you see on them is 6 inches of sock tans, because you can see like halfway up is exactly where their socks cut off, and so you can see where they've been playing all day long.
Yeah. So a little bit relaxed fit is coming back. The double-breasted, softer shoulder is big right now. Soft shoulder, and having like the suit where it's half lined, right? So I know you love that, John. You know, you love having no structure to the jackets, but that's what's in, is having unstructured jackets, softer shoulder, even if it's like a formal suit.
Right.
A lot of the suits that I do, I keep like not the shoulder pad. You're not getting a shoulder pad like it used to be, you know.
Well, I find that perplexing, and I'm older, obviously, and I'm a more traditionalist in that respect. But I've noticed in the last decade or so the emergence of what we call perhaps fast or disposable fashion, coming at the expense of many middle or upper middle class retailers like Nordstrom and Taylor, Black and White, etc., where they're selling more upscale things, but now the cheap stuff seems to be taking over. What's your views on that?
Well, I think first of all, I mean, obviously, I look at it as like the economy as well, right? So I don't know. It just seems like you don't have like that mid-level salary. It seems like it's either everybody's out there trying to get a bang for their buck, or you got the clients like we still had clients like during COVID that were coming and spending $4,000 or $5,000 for a suit. That was no problem. But I think economy-wise, I know it's in the States, but it's here as well. And for example, I'll just give you like, you got Zara and H&M, right? They're casual wear. They really follow what's happening in Europe, right? So you're getting clients that are coming in and saying, or customers that would come and be like, hey, you know what? Let me buy these 5 black t-shirts. I'm going to wear it twice and I'm going to toss it out. But it's costing me $7 and $8 rather than me going to buy a $45 t-shirt that I need. Even if I need 3 or 4 of them, it's just, you're going to be paying more. So it would, the fashion, even when I look at Nordstrom wasn't really, they didn't have a selection, right? When I would walk into a Nordstrom in the States compared to here, Canada is just so like behind with fashion.
Why is that? Why is the selection so limited here versus the US?
I think it's I think like you got giants like, for example, Heroes and we felt it too, because when we were buying for Cloth Talk, we were trying to do stuff that's outside of the box, different, but it wasn't selling, so I think they kind of like set the standards that, hey, you're going to get your blacks, your blues, and your grays, and you're going to do well with it, so yes, we're going to continue to do well with it. But then you got, for example, right across was Holt Renfrew is different. Their selection is what you would wear, what you would get in the States. They're the only ones that I would walk into of like, okay, if I'm trying to find something that I seen a certain person wearing, I know I could find it on Holt's, compared to this giant at Harry Rosen who has set the bar where it's like, you're gonna come in there for your, they really tried to step out of it and it didn't work. Went down. And whether it's because maybe again, like they just got used to the average customer just got used to coming in and wearing your blues, your blacks, your grays, and your solid colors, and now they just can't get out of it, right? So
yeah, I think the customer expectations are something that are very slow to change.
They are,
if you, like you said, you go to a certain store expecting certain items, when those items are no longer there, it can be very damaging to the store, because you're then going to take your business elsewhere if that's what you came there looking for.
Yeah. So somebody like got out of it and then they had to come back. They tried to go street and they tried to go younger, they tried to go millennial, but they're like, okay, our main client is somebody who's in their, I would say, 40s and up, right? So we're gonna leave.
People have better cash flow.
Exactly.
The millennials look at it and they say, oh, I know Harry Rosen's expensive, and so therefore I'm not going to bother going there to shop, because they know that the price points are higher. And so you're right, they kind of miss their target demographic. I think too of even the evolution of some of the department stores here in Canada, and I think it's actually true in the United States as well. The Bay here used to have not great selection, but they had some options. They had some decent brands that they used to carry, and I find that is becoming less and less the case the older that I've gotten. I remember being younger and going there and finding some decent stuff, and now I wouldn't even bother going there. If I'm looking for clothing, I'm not going to the Bay. In the United States, it was the same thing with Macy's. Macy's used to have some decent selection. It was never the top end brands, it was never the top of the line, but they had some decent options where you could go in there and say, oh, there's a middle class brand that provides decent quality at a reasonable price. I can go in there and I can buy that. And I find whenever I'm in the States now that is becoming fewer and far between, and so it is a challenge and a frustration for those people who are in that kind of middle class demographic to try and find some clothing options that fit them. I know my wife has a big issue with it in terms of finding stuff from the women's side. But anyway, I just wanted to get your viewpoint, Wassim. Do you think that this trend is something that's likely to persist over an extended period of time, or do you think we're ever going to go back to a period where we have a true kind of middle tier retailer that exists, or retail option that exists?
I think right now, for the time, from the way it looks, it's just gonna stay the way it is. Yeah.
Do you think the entrance of China as a supplier is playing a big role in this?
Oh yeah, big. It's huge. It's even you have like brands like Hugo Boss, you know, I try not to mention brands or talk them down, but when they try to cut down on their costs, but they're still selling the suit at the same price, right? So you're still selling a suit at $1,200, but before it was made in Italy, and now all of a sudden you're going to tell me that, hey, it's made in China, but I'm still buying it at $1,200, and you're cutting your expenses, right? So not really paying for it as much as you used to pay for it when it's made in Italy. They do have a brand now. They do have like levels, sorry, at Hugo Boss, where you can buy a suit that's made in Italy, but that's costing you $3,000.
Wow.
Yeah,
right?
we're going to get to that, because that's actually something that I did want to discuss with you, Wassim.
So are there major style differences between North America and Europeans? Sometimes it appears as though the Europeans push the boundaries more in fashion trends in terms of fit and pattern relative to North Americans. What do you think? Is that a factual observation?
It is, yeah. And I think it's because they come up with these patterns, they come up with these different fits, right? So they're like, okay, we're going to implement them immediately. We're going to start them. But I could tell you, like, there's still some stuff that I've seen that's worn in Italy, and I'm like, okay, eventually North America, we're gonna catch on to it, and it just never happens, right? So,
right,
like, they've been wearing corduroy now. Corduroy's been like back for the last 2-3 years in Europe, and here it's the other day I wore a full corduroy suit, and I was just like, and somebody looked at me and said, really, a corduroy suit? I haven't worn my grandfather wears corduroy pants. I'm like, right? So, I'm like, I get it, but it's just the way it fits is different. So on a corduroy, yes, it's a little bit more, as I'm saying, like, the fashion right now is going a little bit more on the relaxed side, but on a corduroy pant, I cannot wear like a relaxed corduroy pant. You know, it's immediately going to look like, you know, it's outdated fashion or anything like that. So that's why I'll style it differently. You know, I'll style it a little bit more on the narrower side, maybe even put like a cargo pocket on it where it's closer to the body, you know, so you can tell it's more of a fashion thing rather than, but yeah, Europe is at least a season and a half ahead of us, or 2 seasons ahead of us, right? So they feel like they set the trend, they start to implement it immediately, and we catch on to a few things. We want a few things to stick. We kind of like pick and choose in North America what we want. So.
Do you visit Europe regularly throughout the year, or what's your process?
Well, because of COVID, we never had a chance to go in the last 3 years. But now my first visit, I'm hoping, like I said, it's going to be to Portugal, Italy, and Spain. I'm going to go down there. I'm hoping around March, right? So to visit manufacturers, they have these almost like, it's not really a fashion show, because you got brands, they come out there to show their fabrics, to show what's coming in for the season. They try to sell as well. It's called Pitti Uomo. So they have it in Italy. They do it twice a year for every season, spring and fall. I'm hoping that, I think they're going to run it in March, or even if it's February, that I can go out there in February to show what's coming for spring, right? So they release the colors that are coming, the patterns, the fits, that's coming in February, I believe.
Okay. Yeah. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
So Wassim, you touched on it a little bit there, but I want to get into it a little bit more of a discussion. It's funny, I actually wrote down Hugo Boss as one of my examples, because I remember, you know, growing up, there was always different tiers of Hugo Boss, but my grandfather pointed out to me when we were shopping one time, he goes, look at some of these pieces that they had, and they were glued together, the seams, instead of stitched together. And he used to get frustrated by that, because he said, you know, you're selling this in a high-end retailer. Why are you selling a piece of fabric that's been glued together as opposed to a properly constructed garment? And it used to really bother him that they would charge that much for something like that. And not to, as you said, not to crap on Hugo Boss or anything, but I know other retailers like Armani has their cheaper line as well. But my question is, you know, obviously not all brands or garments are created equally. What types of finishes do you look for when you're purchasing a garment? You know, what makes a brand like Canali or Zegna higher quality than Hugo Boss or Brooks Brothers?
Number one, like as I mentioned before, canvas. It's got to be a canvas suit. So as you're saying, like the fabrics glued to each other, it's called fused, right? Having a fused suit and design, some designers started to do it. you're still paying a premium. Like, it's not cheap. You're paying $1,200 to $1,400, and you're finding out that your garment is fused. So it has no shape to it. It has no drape to it. You take it to a dry cleaner, immediately what's going to happen, the first thing after they dry clean it, it's just going to start to shine in certain areas. There's going to be bubbles. It's going to wrinkle,
Right.
like the imperfections are going to start to show, like it's all going to start to come out, right? So the first thing is having a canvas suit. They're tailored they're tailored pretty well. Like, you can't come and knock their tailoring. It's just the fabric that they're picking and the canvas. So the three main things, obviously, of having a good suit: fabric, canvas, and the craftsmanship. So they can still craft the suit properly, but it's all about the canvas that they're using.
Mm-hmm.
If they're not using anything at all, then
So are you coming in and you're feeling like basically the lapel, the chest, and you're trying to see like what's the
minute you put your hand, like I'll put my hand on the garment like this.
Yeah.
I could tell you, like,
Okay.
there's a canvas in it, right? If you can feel the two fabrics, right now I go like this, I feel the third layer, or
Right.
even more, where it's a little bit more heavier, right? So
Right.
and then feeling the fabric, right?
Yeah.
So Xenia, for example, Xenia is one of the greatest, the best mills, I think, in terms of providing fabric. They do, from what I know, I don't know if they still do, but I know years ago, they used to supply their fabrics to Tom Ford. Tom Ford uses Xenia fabrics.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Tom Ford uses Xenia fabric.
Wow.
So you could just tell, like, when you're holding a Tom Ford suit, when you're feeling that fabric, it's a luxurious fabric, right? So
Yeah.
and
I have a couple of Xenia suits that I love, like the material on them is and I have just a plain black one. Like, it's a matte black, but it's got a bit of a sheen to it, and the fabric is just so soft and so delicate, and it drapes and fits really nicely. And even though it's a more tailored fit, I never feel like I'm constrained. Like, I feel like that suit moves with me, and I really love wearing that suit.
Yeah, it only gets better with time after you keep wearing it.
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to clothing, there are many different types of fabrics which can be used, from traditional materials like cotton and wool, and that's going to be the cotton is more on the casual clothing side than it is obviously on the suit side.
Yeah.
And obviously we discussed already the varying degrees of quality of wool, to silk, cashmere, linen, even jersey fabrics, which are something that have become more popular recently, or synthetics. What types of fabrics are better suited for different types of environments?
So usually that's the first thing, is finding out more about, like, the client and what they're going to use the suit for, right? So if it's obviously a tuxedo, I can go a very luxurious fabric, something that once you put it on, you're gonna cameras, because you're getting also a camera, like, it's the most photographed day of your life, so the camera is really going to zoom in on this fabric, right? So you got to avoid, like, that wrinkle and stuff like that. So it's got to be that luxurious soft fabric. But if I get somebody who said, I'm starting a job where I'm going to be wearing the suit 2 times a week, 3 times a week, now I'm going for fabrics that are a little bit more on the heavier side, and I would say I would keep it in between the suit, the Soutsos 120 or 130.
180, we said. Come on.
What 180 is a little out there, Dad. I don't know that many people are going to be able to buy that. It's a little too delicate.
Come on.
Too delicate.
The 120s and the 130s, because they're a little bit more durable, heavier, they can handle a beating, right? So even if, like, it just comes down to, like, little things, as, like, even if I'm making a custom shirt, right? So if I say the client's going to be wearing the shirt where his hand's going to be on the table, so we'll go with a rounder edge around the cuff of the shirt, because you don't want it to keep rubbing against the table if it's a square, right? So little things like that we find make a difference. So it's selecting the fabric, obviously, for the occasion you're going to wear for. If it's for work, we're going to pick out a fabric a little bit more durable, heavier, that can handle a beating. You can wear it a few times. It's not going to lose its shape as well. It's not going to lose its sheen and stuff like that. And then if you want that one suit in your closet that you want to pull out for certain occasions, and when you wear it, everybody's going to look at you and say, wow, I can see the fabric on that from far away. That looks like a luxurious fabric. It looks like obviously it's a well put together. Like, for me, it's aside from having a pattern, the suit's got to fit well, right? That's what get somebody's attention, that it fits well. And for different builds, you select different fabrics as well, right? So I can get somebody who's a little bit more on the heavier side and give him a super 170 and super 180, because that stuff it's sensitive. Like, if they they go like this, they can rip it, right? So you guys that are bodybuilders, big guys, I can't give them fabric like that. I got to give them fabric it's a little
sturdier.
Exactly. Yeah. And sturdier. Yeah.
And so Wasim, one of the things that I notice, and I always look for, no matter what kind of clothing it is, I'm like you, I like to go and I like to feel it.
Yeah.
And I when I feel a synthetic fabric, obviously jersey material is a little bit different, and jersey materials for a specific type of activity, and we can touch upon that as well. But when it comes to natural fibers versus synthetic fibers, because you can go to a lot of department stores and get a blazer, but if it has a lot of synthetic material in it, what is that going to do to the suit, and how does that impact the way the suit not only feels on you, but how it ages?
Like I said, I mean, in a suit like that, what's a little bit more synthetic, once you take it to a dry cleaner, they bring it back, you're going to be like, why is it shiny? Why is this fabric, like, why did it lose this, like, even if you first bought it and it looks luxurious, why did it lose that luxury part of it? Because again, synthetic, so the wool is not going to be able to handle the heat, right? Of an iron, or pressing it for a few hours, or pressing it for half an hour, it can't handle it, right? And then immediately, because of the canvas not supporting it and not helping it, making it durable and last longer, you're going to get that bubbling part of it. So yes, you're right. You can go and you're going to get probably a blazer. You can be like, oh, $200, that's perfect. But that's number one. You're going to, obviously, the alterations that you're going to need for it. That thing is going to probably have to be dry cleaned sooner than a made to measure suit or a custom suit that you're getting done. We always recommend, I think I've mentioned this to you, where it's like, no, you don't need to dry clean your suit. It's only if you get like a serious stain on it. Otherwise, you gotta, even if you're taking, let's say, a hot shower and you hang it in there, because that fabric is so delicate, it'll be able to, the steam would help it just kind of like relax, go back to its original shape. And that's pretty much how I take care of my suits. Like, I get some suits, if there's no stain on it, I probably would dry clean it once a year, once even every 2 years. But again, like, I shuffle through a lot of them. But yeah, it's about finding the right fabric and it's a suit that's going to last you a lifetime once you take care of it properly.
Yeah. And the jersey fabrics, what is the primary use case for those? Because obviously those have become a little bit more popular in recent years. What's the primary function of those types of materials?
I'm like, all right, so you got a business trip and you're going to hop on the plane. You're going to be sitting there comfortably. You're going to look like very, very, very sleek, casual, but dressed up at the same time. And again, like I said, it's comfort. It's almost like you're wearing track pants, but it's not something that's just going to stretch, right? So in the beginning, when they first started doing jersey, they were doing it with cotton, and with cotton, it is going to stretch. It's not going to go back to its immediate shape. It's like wearing track pants or sweatpants, right? Now they're doing the jersey. They've managed to figure out a way to do it with wool. So the bounce back, it goes back to its original shape. You're not going to get the bubbling on the front of the pant. Or the elbow of the jacket if you go like this, right? So it keeps its shape, but it's very, like I said, office, you're casual, you're wearing it with a t-shirt, you finish from there, you get up and you're going out after, you're not way overdressed, you're not wearing a suit. That's something that's going to get you from a morning meeting throughout your work, and then going into the evening, still super comfortable. And I could tell you, like, some of these jersey, you can even wear, like, you're obviously gonna wear it with sneakers and stuff like that. Like, I think one time I was wearing a pant like that, and I was able to kind of like mess around and play some basketball, and I put on basketball shoes, and comfortable, very, very comfortable. So, and it's for the guys that travel too, like I said. So you're on a plane, right off the plane, you feel like you can walk into a meeting or whoever you see, you're just business casual, very smart, very sleek. And again, it's comfort.
And the final question I'll ask you, Wassim, just to be sensitive to time here, is, I know that you tend to source a lot of your fabrics from places like Italy, Portugal, England. I'm not sure. Do you get any from Spain as well? No? Okay. So those three in particular seem to be where a lot of your fabrics come from. What is it about those European countries that results in them producing higher quality fabrics?
I mean, I would tell you 90% of our fabrics are Italian fabrics through mills from Italy. And it's all about, like, obviously the nurturing and how they take care of you look at their farms and how they, like I said, it's this different. They gotta have these animals in specific atmospheres, right? So, whether it's your goats, your sheep. So that's why we usually resort to, so 90% of them are Italian and the other are English.
Okay.
Some of them don't even, like, they're mills that provide us fabric, but they don't grow their own, or they don't have their own wools, right? So they get from somewhere else. And they just yarn it differently, right? So it's just the way they take care of it. And that's why we rely mostly on the European countries, because these animals obviously got to be in more of a hotter country compared to somewhere where it's ice cold and freezing and stuff like that. So that's why we rely mostly on England and Italy, but mostly Italian.
Sounds to me like this is an issue of attention to detail. The Italians and other European sources have a lot of attention to detail, and you can say that about pretty much all businesses, that that's what distinguishes one business from another, is the ones that have that focus. And so it sounds to me like the Italians leading the way have a focus on everything, not just the fabric, but the animal that the fabric comes from, and the conditions the animal lives in, what the animal eats. And it's incredible to actually think about the vertical on that, and how in the end it pays off in a higher quality fabric.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah. And that's a great point, Dad. And as Wassim could probably attest to, I love discussing this topic in great depth. I love coming by his shop and just hanging around, looking at different pieces and trying stuff on and having a couple of espressos. And it's a truly enjoyable experience. And I hope our listeners have enjoyed this discussion as much as I have, and as much as my dad had. And so on behalf of both of us, Wassim, we want to thank you for coming on and discussing this topic in such great detail. Hopefully we can have you on again in the future. We can discuss some other topics, perhaps an episode on women's fashion, and broaden the scope of our discussion further.
Absolutely, for sure. Thank you,
right.
guys so much.
Thank you, Wassim. And if people want to reach out to you, how can they get in touch with you?
So on Instagram. So right now my personal Instagram, but soon you'll see the business one, where it is Hoopin' in a Suit. Website is www.noahdonis.com. So that's it for now. And obviously, I'm pretty sure you're gonna see my logo.
For listeners who may not have gotten that, can you spell it out?
Yes, so www.noahdonis.com, and on Instagram it is HOOPININSUIT.
Excellent.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Wassim. Bill, I'll turn it back over to you.
Yeah, no, thank you, Wassim. Very interesting conversation. It is interesting, and we should probably leave it on this note, because I could have a little further conversation as well. The value of looking good is so important. It's incredibly important. And so let me ask it to you this way, Wassim. Obviously, if you cater to athletes, they're trying to make a statement.
Correct.
They want it, right? So why is it taking all of us so long to get into this idea that it's important to make a statement by the way we appear?
I think it is it obviously, like for me, it's mental, right? It's a mental thing that when I'm out and I'm looking around and I'm like why? Like I personally, like you can see how I dress. One of my brothers, he's probably not going to be happy about this, but I've seen that guy wear the same t-shirt and the same track pants for like 3 or 4 days in a row. And I'm like, do you know who I am? Like, do you know what I do? So how are you comfortable? And for him, he's just like, this is my comfort zone, right? So it becomes more like, this is my comfort zone. I'm comfortable in this. I do not need anybody to look at me and be like, so for example, he works with wood and he does tables and stuff like that, right? So he's always, it's busy, wood, dirty, a little bit more on the dirtier side. So he's like, to me, he's like, I don't care. I go out, I'm good with how I look. I'm comfortable. But I think so. That's what I think. It's more of a comfort thing, where it's just like, this is how I'm comfortable. And as time has progressed, and I think in the last couple of years, especially, like men are looking more so towards like, I got to be presentable. Even if they're just wearing track pants, a little bit more cleaner, like you can, the way they're wearing it, it's not something where it's a little bit more on the baggier side, nice and clean, closer to the body. So it's progressing, and we're getting there. So yeah,
it's a cycle. As you mentioned, we're moving now probably from a casual cycle to a more formal or presentable cycle. It's very interesting. Hey, John and Alex, thank you so much for facilitating the conversation.
Thank you, Bill.
If anybody who's listening wants to get a hold of y'all, what's the best way to do that?
Yep. The best way is to go to our website, which is www.medwealth.ca. That's med-wealth.ca, or they can send us an email at info@medwealth.ca. And then on our website, it'll have our phone number, our toll-free number as well. And we are also on X, which is @medwealth. That's @med-wealth. We're also on LinkedIn, both individually and as a company. So people can feel free to reach out to us in any one of those manners.
And to all the baby boomers in the crowd, we're also on the telephone, 905-568-2000, and toll free 1-888-568-1170. That's 1-888-568-1170. So don't be afraid to pick up the phone.
The phone. Interesting instrument.
Yes, the original purpose of the mobile device in our pockets was to communicate verbally
with one another. Exactly.
Yes.
That's fantastic. John, thanks. Alex, thank you. We appreciate the conversation. Listeners, if you're not a subscriber, be one. Hit the subscribe button. That way you'll never miss another episode of this great podcast. We thank you for listening on behalf of John, Alex, and everybody at MedWealth Financial. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Bill Tucker, reminding you, live your best life, not tomorrow, but today. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Prescribing Prosperity. Visit our website at med-wealth.ca. That's med-wealth.ca for more information or to connect with us for a consultation. Don't forget to click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the hosts and their guests and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of IPC Securities Corporation. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investment advice. Always seek the advice of a qualified and licensed financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment or retirement planning. MedWealth Financial Services can provide a private consultation to help you determine the suitability of any guidance discussed on the show.